parental alienation. We mentioned this earlier, and this has been on the rise in the last couple of months for me, just litigating these issues. I think there's research, right? So parental alienation, first of all, like, you have to know that that's a thing. You have to know that world, that experience is labeled parental alienation. There's a huge body of research on this. And I think the point is, if you're in a situation where you're like, you know what, mom or dad's coaching the kids, there are often non-disparagement clauses in divorce decrees, right? Don't talk smack about mom. Yep. Don't talk smack about mom's boyfriend or girlfriend. Just keep everything positive with the kids. And you read it, you're kind of like, yeah, obviously, right? That we kind of just like blow it off, or it's so apparent and so obvious in terms of what good parenting looks like and there's animosity towards the other party. So it kind of gets lost in the mix. But that's a real problem from the child's perspective, right? From the best interest of the child, that's super, super, super damaging. So it's not just about mom hates dad or dad hates dad or the parents hate each other. The parents are talking smack. That's ridiculously toxic to the children in a way that is like suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, all these things in kids, not just short-term, but long-term. And I don't know how much the judges have been trained on this, right? It's an open question. How, like, is this at the center of the judges?
Let me comment on that.
Yeah.
Let me comment on that. How much of the judge has been trained on it? Back in October, I was up in Orlando at the American Bar Association's Family Law Conference. There was a presentation by an attorney and a therapist, two of the most respected people in terms of research and litigating parental alienation. And a judge from Atlanta, Georgia, or the Atlanta area, that oversees family cases, raised her hand and stood up and said, it's impossible for me to say parental alienation has occurred because not one time in her 10 years on the bench had anybody presented her with what parental alienation was and what they were claiming. So running into court and saying parental alienation, that happens regularly and it's ineffective. You have to assume your judge knows nothing. That was kind of a shocking piece to me that she stood up and said, I've never found parental alienation because no one's ever presented to me what their definition of parental alienation is.
Yeah. So what does that mean for people and their attorneys? Like what? So the judges are kind of like, whatever. I'm not going to rule on it. It means, and that's what I see as an attorney. The judges are kind of like, we hear the words you're saying, but it doesn't, like, we don't have a checkbox for that on our sheet. Like, we don't have template orders with that on our sheet. Mark, I think it goes to this problem that you just talked about. Like, how do you educate the court without coming off as a patronizing, pompous attorney, right? Or if you're self-represented, how do you do the same thing? How do you educate the court?
Yeah, I think for me, number one is you're going to lay the foundation with, you're going to brief it, and you're going to be factual and you're going to be scientific, and evidentially that would be kind of questionable. Technically, to get anything in about that, you would probably have to put an expert on the stand and have an expert testify to it. But we know family court is the Wild West, and so I would go in and the book I always recommend is Litigating Parental Alienation by Ashish Joshi, who's a Michigan attorney who does litigate parental alienation. He wrote a book on it. And a lot of states actually have case law that lays out their standards and what parental alienation means. And all that information is in this book. And you can go in and educate your judge and present this factual information. If it's available at an evidentiary hearing, you can put an expert on the stand and have them testify as to what it is clinically. And that's a little bit expensive, but like I told a client the other day, we can take factually what parental alienation is and how it's diagnosed, and your attorney can put that case on. Now most attorneys probably aren't going to be versed enough in it to be able to go into a trial and present parental alienation appropriately. But that's going to be one of the things in finding an attorney, if you're in one of those high conflict situations, that's going to be able to stand up there and walk through, hey, here's the cycle of parental alienation. Here's the non-exclusive 17 different behaviors that are associated with parental alienation. So you're going to want someone who can do that. You don't, I mean, literally a brief, and then having an attorney who can walk through the steps of what it is clinically can be extremely impactful. Because, like I said, running into court and saying parental alienation, what can the judge actually even do? You really haven't presented them with anything.
I think that's right. I don't have anything to say other than to say I think that's right. Right. I think it doesn't sound like rocket. It doesn't. People may be like, yeah, obviously that's right. Obviously, you have to. The words parental alienation have to come out of your mouth if you're an attorney. Also, what it means has to come out of your mouth. Right, what it is, the case law to support it. That's good lawyering. And so, Mark, you're right. I mean, if I was shopping for an attorney, and I felt like parental alienation was at play, and I heard you say what you just said, that would give me comfort, right? If whether we were going to litigate it or not, just to know that somebody had in their vision like the vocabulary to see, like, yes, this is an issue, and to be able to tell the court. Because let's give the court the benefit of the doubt for the second. Let's say that while they're not educated in this particular vice, like they're open to hearing and learning. So then all you got then your job is to educate. And I think as attorneys, we have to assume that the court, for our own sanity, we have to assume that the court has the best intentions. The court has the best interest of the child. The court wants to do what's right. The court wants to follow case precedent. And so we shouldn't make assumptions. We should just do our jobs and present the facts. And so that book that you mentioned is seminal, Litigating Parental Alienation. It is expensive, right? So it's not something that you could buy for 67 cents on Amazon used books, but I think it is worth it. It's the long version of what Mark just laid out. And, maybe what might be useful is that book's massive tome. Maybe it'd be useful to go through in like a 5-minute YouTube video or give a condensed Cliff Notes version. But, if you're going to invest in an attorney, you want them to be samurai.
Yeah, and I mean, there are other resources. Like, I'll pull this up here. Daniel makes this. There are so many people. Dr. Craig Childress is one of the preeminent experts in the space. And they have resources available that are more short form. Now, that book, Litigating Parental Alienation, it's, I would say, 250 pages. It's a big textbook. It's very technical. But if you can boil it down simply, I mean, essentially parental alienation at its core, if we're going to be explaining it, is there was a bond between child and parent. Now there's rejection. And you have to fill in the blanks between those two. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Robert Simon out of, hopefully have him on the show here actually in the next month or so, out of San Diego is one. Dr. Craig Childress. In terms of litigating it, obviously Ashish Joshi is the guy. He travels all over the country. Another one, Amy Baker. I've read some of her stuff. So there's a lot of people. And you have to realize, like I had a client the other day who it's a very clear parental alienation issue. And I put that in our pre-hearing brief. And he freaked out. He's like, I read that you're not supposed to put it. That may have been the case 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. But there's been a lot of movement. And so it's a lot of times attorneys just simply haven't educated themselves. So if you're in one of those situations, you have to find someone who's either willing to educate themselves on it, because if there's parental alienation, if it's significant, you're probably going to be litigating it out. It's probably not going to be the type of case that's going to get settled. Or someone who understands and already knows what it is and knows how to litigate it. Because I think as much as prior to being an attorney, I viewed attorneys as every attorney is this brilliant constitutional scholar. That's just simply not the case. You can 100%. I would say that 80% of family law attorneys probably have never actually made. That's probably generous. Have never made a actual technical parental alienation argument in court.
Want to say one more thing. Dr. Childress's name was mentioned by a viewer. I would second that. I think he's incredibly knowledgeable. He's from California, but his research, his scholarship, his writing, first of all, there's a ton of it. Second of all, it's super accessible and free. So 2 thumbs up on that. Got to run, Mark, and everybody else.
Yeah, no, I know we were on a shot clock here. Thank you so much for coming on again. It's always a lot of information. For everybody watching, I know a couple people were asking for email addresses, different things to get that brief. Ryan's going to send a redacted version over to me. And in the next, give me a week to get it to the Father's Rights Movement social team. And we're going to get that posted. We may be able to get it on the website. We'll at least get it onto social media so everyone has access to it.
Awesome.
So once again, Ryan, thank you for coming on. To all of our viewers, I will be back again at our normal time next Thursday at 5 p.m. on December 23rd. So until then, thank you all for watching. And once again, Ryan, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, guys. Happy holidays.